I'm Donna. I am a software engineer with Slack, and over the past few years, I've got the chance to work in a couple of 0 to 1 projects, and I'd like to share a few learnings from that here. Um, just to start with a bit about me, mentioned I'm a software engineer, and past couple of years, I've been doing a lot of full stack and backend development, both 0 to 1 projects and 1 to N projects. And it's been a mix of full stack and backend roles. So a lot of these projects, it wasn't by purpose that I got into it, but once I started working on it, I felt like, yeah, that's something that I'm really enjoying, and there's a lot of learning and growth happening in these projects. So outside of work, I am pretty active in a lot of organizations like Women Tech Makers, Anita.org, IEEE, etc. And also I have a leadership program that I work in parallel, which is Show Your Word Circles. So we have a couple of cohorts done already, waiting for a few more. And that's a bit about me. So here's a few topics that we'll be discussing today. What is 0 to 1 as such, and what are some of the phases through which we will go in? How do you identify 0 to 1 projects, and some practical tips? What are the impacts, and how can you benefit from it? So let's start with what is 0 to 1. So the concept was popularized by Peter Thiel in his book, but it existed a lot more, but he's the one who got it famous. And it doesn't have to be always a technical project. It can be you building a community from scratch, or like you building your career from scratch, like as a beginner. So any of these things can be considered as a 0 to 1 effort. And it's all about driving innovation and having some competitive edge over what exists already, and also learning as you do it. So how do you identify 0 to 1 opportunities? So when it comes to innovating something, you always have to spot it at some point. So what are some of the things that you could do, or like how do people stumble upon these opportunities? So the first thing is spotting gaps in needs. So always look for what are the pain points. What does customer actually want, or like what is something that has been bothering you about something, and trying to solve those actually gets you to that 0 to 1 moment, or figuring out something that is like actually valuable, or like something new, something that is not existing at the moment. And that's what actually you have to look deeper into to build your unique value proposition. How do you make your product or feature unique from what is existing? So you build it around the user pain points, identifying what wasn't existing before, what are you bringing in. And then the other method is, or the other area is, finding the area of stagnation. So what is something that has been existing for a long time, but it has been monotonously growing, or like something didn't change for a while? So that's also an area of change that you could work upon. For example, if you take Airbnb, hotel industry has been there for a while, and everybody has been using it for a while. But Airbnb redefined it. So they brought up a newer face to it, and also marketed it in an entirely different way. The other one is actually reframing an existing problem. So this might be already existing. You might have been already using it, but you could reframe it in a different way. An example is Uber. Taxi industry was always there, but Uber defined it gave a different aspect of it, or a different look and feel to it. So those are some of the things you could identify some of the 0 to 1 efforts. Now let's talk about the phases of 0 to 1 project. And it's important to understand the phases so that you have a plan and a roadmap ahead of you, like that you could work on it. So the first one is ideation. So identifying the opportunity itself is part of it. Figuring out like what you need to do, what is your unique value proposition, what is the who are your customers, or like who are you building it for, and why are you building it for? And you need to align your stakeholders at this point. You have to figure out like who are your supporters, like who is the team of believers that you're going to have along with you. And the next phase is planning and prototyping. So this is when you actually break down the bigger product problems into smaller things, or like more actionable steps. Identify what you can do, set up milestones, what are the metrics that you want to measure. Like it has to be both quantitative and qualitative, so that you can measure what success looks like. So you get a product out in the market, like you can't just keep going without knowing what it is about, or like who is using it. So you will always need a plan on measuring all these things. And this is when you do all these things, and prototyping is a key part of it. So you have to test it out first to see like, okay, you have a great idea, but how do you build it? So start from scratch, build the minimum viable product out there so that like you can send it out for the users and testers to see how it works. And once you have the MVP, then comes the third phase, which is execution and scaling up. So at this point, agility is very crucial, and you have to keep your team motivated. You will encounter a lot of troubles, you will encounter a lot of failures and successes, of course. But at all these times, you have to make sure your team's morale is up, and they are working towards the end goal. So getting feedbacks from customers or internal users, all these things are very crucial at this point, and you need to pivot when needed. So sometimes you might have developed something, it worked out well for a while, but things changed. Like you have to pivot at that point, figure out like what would solve this problem or stagnation, or figure out what you could do next to get it to the next phase of it. And that's an overview of the phases. Now, let's talk about a bit about leading the 0 to 1 projects. What are some of the key things that you need in order to lead a project or lead a 0 to 1 project? So it's not just applicable to 0 to 1 projects, it's applicable to everything, but very key in some of these things. First thing I always highlight is visionary leadership. So you need to know what you're doing. You need to have a plan for the future. So when things go wrong, this is when you actually show your leadership and say, hey, this went wrong, like we learned this, let's move on, let's take the next step. So anticipate what might be coming your way and try to address them in as detail as possible. Adaptability is the next one. So when it comes to 0 to 1 projects, you'll encounter challenges. You will have a lot of success and a lot of failures from which you have to learn. So when you encounter something that is not working, analyze what you have learned so far, what was good in it, what are the learnings from it, and adapt accordingly. So if you need to pivot, if you need to ditch the entire thing and redo a piece of it, go for it. So you need to be able to have that resilience to figure out like what was wrong and how you could address it. Adding bandages on something like can't solve it only to an extent. So you'll have to be agile and adaptable for that. And communication. Clear communication is is an essential skill at any point of life these days. Be very transparent to the stakeholders. Keep them posted about like what are the updates, what is done so far, what was the impact of it, and what is your future plan for it. So making these known to everyone keeps up the energy, and also you'll have that circle of people who believes in you, your vision, and the product or the feature. And data-driven decision making. That's the next point and a key point. So whenever you start something, you might not have something, but as you grow, as you build newer things or add more and more details and detailing to it, you start getting the data. So that's when you have to take a look at it, take a deeper look at it, figure out what needs to be done based on it. And this is a key thing when you are agile and pivoting. So when you decide to go a different way, you must make use of these data and come out with a plan based on what you're seeing, what is the trend, and how could you make sure that the next step that you're going to take is something that is going to actually work or like at least change the direction. So those are some of the things that that comes up always. Other than that, some of the things are like risk tolerance, strategic thinking, team building. All these things are always key when it comes to this leadership of 0 to 1 products. So next, let's talk a bit about some of the practical steps. So when it comes to a 0 to 1 development or product development or whatever you do, the first thing is identifying the real problem and reframing it. That is a part of the phase 1 that we discussed a bit before. So you look at the pain points. You could lurk in forums about like what are the problems, or like figure out, talk to people, talk to users of existing products in similar aspect, and see what their pain points are, and reframe it in a different way so that you know this one, when done in a different way, could solve such and such problem. So one of the example is earlier people used to own CDs, and that was redefined to Spotify, iTunes, a lot of different things. And second one is start small, but think big. It might be a very small idea that can start into a bigger product or anything. Facebook started as just for the Harvard University, not for the whole world. So you test it in a smaller aspect or smaller subset, and then build it out. So it always works out because you have some learnings from where you started, and it keeps you going beyond what it was at the beginning. And assembling a team of believers, the people around you, your stakeholders, if it's a product or tech product, like the developers, testers, product managers, anybody around you, you need to have a team who believes in all these things, so that they also have a shared goal of getting to the end product or getting into the next level. Sketching a wild but simple solutions. Some of the things might not be a big deal to work out. So just something that just came to my mind was, I was interviewing for a role, and the question was it was a difficult question. There was one last bit I had to figure out. I just had to do a +1 to it, but I made it overcomplicated by adding like inner loops and multiple loops. So you don't always have to go to that complex solution. Sometimes the solution might be very simple, and always keep that in mind. And test fast and learn faster. Again, goes back to the point of pivoting, learning from data. Ask, did it actually solve the problem, or did it actually make it worse? So learn from every single step and iterate faster. Again, brings to the next point of iterate relentlessly. So make sure that you get feedback from users and also your team of believers, which we mentioned. Double down on things that actually worked and kill it what didn't work. So some of the tools that we've used in the past, like when I was working on 0 to 1 efforts, was Full Story was a very played a key role in some of the things. We used Full Story to identify how user interacts with the product. Whereas where do you see a lot of aggression? Like, is there any place where people are actually getting stuck? Because as a developer, I might feel, okay, this particular button being here, like it works. But as a common person who is using it, it might not be that way. So make use of those tools to identify what are the pain points, or like what are the things that didn't actually work or causing some disruption to the user. And think of sustainable growth strategies. Your goal is always for long-term vision. And also, you always have difficulties in like resources or time. There will be a lot of crunches around you. At all these times, you have to have a sustainable growth strategy. Like, what next? How do you plan the next steps? All these things have to be kept in mind when any decision is being made. So let's talk a bit about the impact. Measuring impact over profit. So when it comes to product, and it's very early stage, profit might not be an option at very early stages sometimes. So one thing that you can always measure at that point is what is the impact that it has created. Even when startups go for the funding, like they keep projecting the impact that they've made over the past few years or months, so that they can highlight this is what they were and this is the impact that they created. So always have that mindset of measuring the impact. And it's also leaving a legacy behind. Anything that you work or develop, that's actually a legacy that you're leaving behind. Your learnings, your mistakes, your successes, everything is something that you're leaving for the next generation or the future people who come to the future teammates to learn from as a legacy that you left behind. So Steve Jobs' vision for Apple was not just to develop products. Like, he entirely changed the vision of how telecommunication and entertainment, a lot of things worked. So when you think from that aspect, like it's not just about building things, and it's also about leaving legacy. And also creating opportunities for leadership and growth. So when you lead all these projects, like, you are not just creating opportunities for yourself, it's also for every single person of your team. So one of the 0 to 1 projects that I worked on, like, we just started as 2 engineers, and along the process, we both learned a lot. There was a 3rd engineer who joined. I was mentoring him. So it was giving me an opportunity to build my mentorship skills and also my leadership skills. So the other person in my team, like, she is a manager right now. She started with that project. So she also learned a lot of things along the way. So that's how, like, newer opportunities are being created, and you focus on the growth aspect of it. And you are being part of shaping the future of your organization and your team. A well successful product which changed the history of the entire company is actually like when you work on something like that, it's actually you are being part of that vision, and you are actually helping the organization itself to shape its future, what it looks like in the future, what is success defined for them. So when all these things happen, everything doesn't go always well. Like there are challenges that are coming with it. So one of the thing that always comes is ambiguity. So when you start something new, you don't know like what is to be done and what needs to be done. So there's always ambiguity. So you rely on like what do you know, what needs to be done. Breaking down to smaller tasks always helps in solving these ambiguity. And the next one is resistance to change. So not a lot of people are happy with newer things. So they like things as is. So you have a huge task of convincing people, okay, doing this change is going to support you or like the whole team itself, or it's going to solve such and such problem in a much elegant way. So having that knowledge about like how deep knowledge that you have about the product or the vision itself will help you navigate through all these things. And limited resources is something that always comes. You might not have enough people to work on, enough money to work on. Managing everything with the existing budget is also very crucial. You'll have to double down on things that are like, this is when prioritization comes into a lot of place. So you might have an 8,000 number of features that you have in mind, but you'll have to prioritize with the limited resource that you have. Like what would be a good one to start with? And failures and team morale, that's another key piece. When you have a failure, learn from it, and also when it is a success, keep celebrating it. Keeping the team morale up is very essential so that like you can end up with a successful product or feature. And maintaining the team morale is very essential for all these things. So one of the things that we always used to do is whenever we reach a milestone, or like, okay, we onboarded a new customer, we celebrate that milestone. It might be a simple coffee that we all go and have together as a team, but it's still a celebration. So make sure that you celebrate all these wins. And now what's in it for you? So there's a lot of things that I learned along the way. So one of the thing is, how do I manage all these like high pressure work at any point? Developing my leadership skills, driving innovation, how do I prioritize? All these things have been very much useful for me in learning new things and also building my career along the way. So some of the projects, like it got me promoted much faster than the existing tenure or like the existing path they had. So you learn how you could develop your skills, and also like personally how you could grow. So one of the things that actually helped me was prioritization of a lot of things. So when I started a leadership program, I knew like what are the things that I should prioritize first. When you start something by yourself, like there's a lot of things in your hand. Like you might have to do this, you have to start setting up the cohort, like you'll have to find the venue. But what comes first? So all these things I learned along the way when I was working on these projects, which didn't exist and had to be built from scratch. And of course, learning from the mistakes was always key. Growth and learning helped me a lot. So with that, I'd like to come to a closure to the session, and I want to emphasize on some of the key concepts. Having a clear vision is resiliency to face uncertainties, and being adaptable when you have to pivot and need it. So it's actually fostering a new culture within the team yourself, and heading an opportunity to head that is always a great opportunity to learn and grow. And with that, I'd like to conclude. I hope you had something to take home with you. Thank you. Okay, we have a few more minutes. In case anybody have any questions, I'll be around.
I want to say thank you for talking. I really appreciate it. I'm working on a startup right now, and my team is small, so I guess I'm looking for more advice of like, so the slides are really good, and I got a lot from that, but I wanted to understand like if I wanted to pick up new people, if there was like a best way to do that, because right now like it's really easy to keep up like the team morale and things like that.
Mhm.
Because there's three of us. So
Okay.
like, I just text them and I'm like, hey, we're doing great, we made this progress.
Mhm.
But if I wanted to pick up like four more people or another team for something specific,
Mhm.
how would I maintain that while like growing as a startup?
So a lot of the companies now focus a lot on the cultural interviews, and that is to know how well you would gel with the team. So have the new members like talk to the team, like see how they work out the balance between each other. And of course, technical knowledge is key to it. But how I see is like if they have enough drive and if they have the knowledge, basic knowledge that they need, they'll be able to like cope up with it. There will be a ramp up period for sure, but they'll be able to get it. So focus on the technical skills and also the soft skills, like how do they gel with the people, or a lot of the questions on like how conflict resolution is done is all helpful to know all these things. You know a person like when you talk to them for like, that's why all these interviews are like 45 minutes to 1 hour. Like you'll be able to figure out if there is a wrong signal that is to be found out, like you will be able to find it in that sense. Yep.
Yeah, so the concept of one person business is moving a lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just want to be the only person in the business and I want to start it, and it should be a tech business. So what would be the best way to go around with it? And would you like learn the skills first and then maybe upgrade the prototype, or would you just start with ChatGPT and keep building on the way? While learning simultaneously, because that's difficult.
Yeah. If I were you, I would start building and learn along the way. So when you plan to, okay, you could spend a day or two, like, but time box it. So if you keep learning, if you have a thought of, okay, let me learn first and build it, 90% of the time you keep learning, but you never get to that point where you are starting to build. But once you start building, the learning is much faster. So I remember my first 0 to 1 product. It was at Microsoft, and I had to learn front-end development. I hated front-end development at that point, but I was like, okay, it's a new opportunity. Let me give it a try. So the first week I spent some time learning new skills, React and TypeScript and everything. And then I felt, okay, I've been learning a lot of things, but I don't know how to use it. So I told my manager, okay, let me start building things so that I know how to use these things that I learned and I learned along the way.
Our last question. Can you talk a little more on your Slack engineer? So like maybe like a day in life or something like that. But I know that's not specifically tailored.
Yeah, sure. So I am a senior engineer there. So we are a small team of backend engineers of 4. So each person owns a different feature. So most of the time, how the time is being spent is like whenever there's a feature, the first few days is focused on all the technical analysis and spike and all these things, and then there's more focus on the implementation side of it. So I'd say like. After the first few days of feature development, like there's a more time spent on the implementation side of it. We try to keep number of meetings less. A lot of the conversations are async. Even in Spike reviews, like we try to keep it async so that you don't have to be in a room like where you have no idea if you're interested in it or not. Once you post it, like every single person in the team has this urge to go take a look at it and see what it is so that they know what the other person is working on. I think we're almost at time. Thank you.